I'm a big fan of letting everyone know, just focus on other stuff. The promotions tab is not your problem. If you put the company name of the person that you are marketing to in that subject line, they instantly want to check it out.
Unsubscribes don't necessarily bother me, but the fact is that if people are unsubscribing, you're refining that email list to the people who are actually paying attention. And
your email database is the most important asset in your company. It's the only thing that you can control when you're communicating with your entire audience, when you want to do it. Can't do that on social media, can't do it on search. An actual number at the start of your subject line will lift the percentage of people opening up your emails by about 20%. And the reason being is when you're doing that social scroll in your inbox that we all do, it actually grabs you by that millisecond, that's subconscious, and you see the number. And that's why it grabs you.
How you respond to the review is more important than the review itself in most cases.
Absolutely. Or instead of, buy now, it's save my 25% now. The person needs to feel like they're one step closer. So when you write things in first person, your click-through rates radically change.
I see a lot of people in marketing that'll say early bird offer, only good for 3 days, and 3 days come and go. And on day number 4, early bird offer extended for another, and they just extend it perpetually. And I don't even know that it ever goes up to the regular price, but I've always been good about sticking to my guns and having it where if we have a promotion, we have the promotion. If you miss it, you miss it.
Creating FOMO for any of your content is going to be how you get people a little bit more interested, because right now all we're doing is just hoping that they click through.
The best leads that I can get into my insurance agency come from long form blog posts that people have read and decided to take a call to action on my website. Our close rates are much, much higher on those because they're much higher intent. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And one of the ways we do that is bring you brilliant marketing minds that'll help you fine-tune your game and get you in front of your ideal prospects. Today, my guest is Jay Swedelson, the founder of SubjectLine.com, and we are going to talk about email marketing and a whole bunch of other stuff that I have a feeling you're going to find interest in and be able to implement in your business. So before we get too far down the road, I want Jay to do a quick intro of who he is and kind of give his background, and then we're going to sit here and talk marketing probably for the next 35, 45 minutes, and then let you guys at it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you inviting me here. Super fired up to talk about all things marketing. Quick background on me. So I've had a demand generation agency that works with both business and consumer marketers for, 25 years, about 100 or so people based down South Florida. And we do all sorts of media, email being one of those channels. And years ago, I was so frustrated with how to get emails opened. What are the tactics? What are the little things you could do? So we spun up a website called SubjectLine.com, which is free to use, where people can go there and see if their subject lines are good or bad. And we've now checked over 15 million subject lines. And my agency, we send out about 6 billion emails a year. And we're always looking at what are the things, how do we get these email opened? How do we get them responded to? Because to me, your email database is the most important asset in your company. It's the only thing that you can control when you're communicating with your entire audience, when you want to do it. Can't do that on social media, can't do it on search. Even though I work on all those channels, I'm an email first guy.
That's awesome, man. And I think, over the last 5 years, I don't know, maybe we've had one other person come on and mention email marketing at all. And I certainly know that it wasn't a subject of an entire podcast. And I think it's something, honestly, I would say the first thing people do really bad is automated outreach on LinkedIn. I think the second one they do really bad, if they don't have any kind of coaching or platform that helps them with it, is email marketing, specifically in my industry, but also the people who market to my industry, because I get this garbage every single day. And I'm at the point now where even on LinkedIn, I used to go back at them because it made me feel good that I told them how bad their approach was. Now I just ignore it and move on. But why do you think people are so bad at email marketing when they first start out?
What we've done, a lot of folks they turn it into a cold channel. They try to automate cold outreach, right? They'll use these different cold email sending tools, and they're using email, say, book a meeting, I need to make a sale, come on, let's book a meeting. And that's how they're using email. But that's not how you can get email to work for your business, to get people interested in what you're doing. You really want to look at it as a way to establish you as a thought leader. I don't believe in attribution in any marketing channel, right? So if you run a search ad and then you get a customer, or you send an email, then you get a customer, or whatever you're doing, and you say, oh, I spent this much money, I got this lead, I got this customer, that worked, that's my attribution. I think that's garbage. Attribution is really surround sound, meaning you need to be putting information in front of people ongoing via email, via social, via search, via whatever. And then when they're in market for that thing, you're going to be top of mind because you've established that in their brain. And what people should be doing with email, rather than just cold outreach garbage, is sending emails that provide value to the recipient. Nothing that you are asking for, not a meeting, not a sale, not anything. Where you're saying, here are the 3 latest trends in, commercial real estate. Here's the 4 biggest things in insurance that you need to know. Here's something new that just happened this week that I don't know if you're aware of. And you're not asking them to do anything. You're giving them value. So when they are ready, they're going to think of you. And I think that's the mindset shift we need to have with email. And there are lots of little things we could talk about on how to get those emails actually opened.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, attribution, if you're going to hear people all day long trying to figure out where things came from as far as leads go. And
Yeah.
you know, to your point, maybe that's where the lead came from because it worked that day. That
Yes.
person just happened to open the email, read it, clicked that day. Base your marketing strategy on replicating things that work at a finite moment of time might not necessarily mean that they work 2 weeks later. It may be a completely different environment somebody's in, or, from my standpoint, I might read marketing emails if I'm on a 2.5 hour plane ride somewhere and I'm trying to clear out my email or whatever else. But your chances of getting me to open that, for the next 6 weeks are probably slim and none, unless there's a reason for me to open it, or what you provided me originally was something that I found valuable and I want to see what the next thing is that comes out. The other thing is, even with social, it's almost impossible to get accurate attribution inside social, specifically because of how much dark social there is. I mean, there's so many things that go on where people, will read something and maybe not click on the link, not comment, not like, not give you a profile view, but end up later remembering who you were and go directly to a website, or they mention it to one of their friends in a private message or in a conversation in the office, and then that person happens to go directly to your website. So I mean, it's really difficult, I think, to nail attribution across the board. So that thought process certainly makes sense to me. So, thinking through email marketing specifically, I think probably the best place to start is not necessarily the content. Let's just assume that whatever we have as far as educational content is going to be valuable to somebody, or should be valuable to them if we're creating it the right way. And I'm a massive organic lead generation through content production person. I've been blogging for 20 years. It served me very, very well. I believe that the best leads that I can get into my insurance agency come from long form blog posts that people have read and decided to take a call to action on my website. Our close rates are much, much higher on those because they're much higher intent than somebody who watches a reel on Instagram or a short on YouTube or whatever else. I feel like those people consume content in short bursts over time and maybe eventually will be led to make some sort of a decision to reach out. But before we even get into how an email is structured or what's in it, we have to figure out how to get people to open it. So that's one of the things you mentioned. And I know specifically subjectline.com is your baby. Let's talk a little bit about that, subject lines, and how you can tweak those to get people to pay attention.
Yeah, 100%. Because the best thing about subject lines is that it's so easy to do, and there are little things that you can do that cost you nothing, that take 5 seconds, that are a game changer. So the first thing is, I want to liberate everybody. One of the biggest myths in the world of email is that there are things like spam trigger words, that there are words that you put in your subject line that are going to cause you to go to the junk folder or spam folder, that the word free is bad to use, or you can't use an exclamation mark or an emoji, or you can't capitalize words, or you can't use brackets. There's these old myths out there that the reason you get filtered for business to business marketers is because you're putting certain things in your subject line or your body copy. That is from 10 years ago. Okay, that's not the reason you go to the junk folder. You can put whatever you want in the subject line, and it has nothing to do with why you're staying in that inbox. I don't care what articles you read, people are regurgitating old information. So now that we know we could do whatever we want to do in that subject line, okay, what should you do? Nobody actually reads the whole subject line. Okay, they don't. They read the first few characters, the first word or two. They're doing a social scroll in their inbox. So people always like, how long should my subject line be? How many characters? That's irrelevant. You could write Jay's an idiot at the end of your subject line. Nobody's going to see it. What you want to think about are those first few characters. So what can you do? One of the secret hacks is a number. You start your subject line with an actual number. You know, the 7 pitfalls to avoid in the insurance world, the 3 things you need to know this week. An actual number at the start of your subject line will lift the percentage of people opening up your emails by about 20%. And the reason being is when you're doing that social scroll in your inbox that we all do, it actually grabs you by that millisecond, that subconscious, and you see the number. And that's why it grabs you. Other things just like that is capitalizing the entire first word or 2 words of your subject line, not just the first letter, but the whole word. It might say new, NEW. It might say just released, but you capitalize all the letters. And again, it gets you to pause and it gets you to read the rest of it. Or brackets. Start your subject line with brackets and put the most important thing in the brackets. You know, live event, new offer, new piece of content. Put that in brackets at the start of your subject line, and your North Star should be what is at the start of my subject line so we can get people to read the rest. And I got a million other random ones like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I never really thought about that before. And you're right. I think people are going out and regurgitating anything and everything we've heard for the last however many years, and most of them don't even really understand what they're saying anyhow. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, I don't want to get blacklisted. And then if you ask them what that means, they don't even know what blacklisting is. They just heard somebody say it somewhere. But
Yes.
impactful subject lines, I think, are probably somewhat of an art. You have to think through it. And how about A/B testing? I mean,
Yeah.
how much back and forth are you doing before you really get these honed in? Or is that actually what your website is designed to help people with?
Yeah, that's what it does. And again, it's super easy to use and it's 100% free. You couldn't pay me if you wanted to go and mess around on there. But I'll tell you probably the one, if I said, what's the one subject line tip that I would try that I know works better than any other one? And this idea you want to plant in your mind with all of your marketing. The sooner you tell somebody who they are, the faster they want to engage. When people talk about personalization in marketing, they think it's still putting, David in the subject line. David, comma, check this out. First name personalization in the subject line is from 1984. It's total garbage and it doesn't really work. But the personalization in the subject line that crushes it for business to business marketers is telling the person who they are in a different way. Meaning, let's say you are marketing to people in the construction category. Okay. Just for construction business owners. If you put in the subject line, the industry that the person is in, instantly when they see that subject line, like, oh, I work in the construction industry. This is for me. I need to open that up. The sooner somebody sees themselves, they're going to react. Or it could be their job function, right? This is something CFOs need to know. I'm a CFO. I got to open this thing up. The sooner the person says this is for me and not for everybody else. And the best one is company name. If you put the company name of the person that you are marketing to in that subject line, they instantly want to check it out. Like my agency is called Outcome Media, right? Is Outcome Media at risk? Outcome Media's competitors are doing this, ... I need to know what are my competitors doing? So personalization beyond name in the subject line for whoever you're marketing to is the number one thing that I would do in terms of how to get more emails open.
Interesting. So I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking to myself, if I were to do an outreach campaign to plumbers in the Tampa Bay area, I'm trying to figure out how I would use individual company names versus industry versus
I'll
a
tell you right
number.
now, I would send a subject line that says for plumbing companies in Tampa Bay area, because now you got double personalization. And you're like, if I own a plumbing company, I'm in Tampa Bay, and I see that email, I'm like, oh my God, this is literally for me. Okay, that's it.
Now, are you dancing a fine line between advertising and actually just marketing through the email? And what I mean is, one of the issues we face right now is, and you're in Florida, right? I'm in
Yeah.
Tampa. You're in
Right.
Southeast Florida. I'm bad. You're worse as far as auto rates go. And
Right.
the contractors specifically are facing a horrible dilemma because many of them that are smaller are either having to sell or they're going completely out of business because they just can't even afford what the rates are for insurance and general liability and umbrella these days. So I'm thinking, naturally, if I want to use a number or something to grab people's attention, something like 20% savings for plumbers, all caps in Tampa Bay on auto insurance or something like that. I mean, am I on the right track?
100%. If it's an offer-based thing, absolutely. You're telling people exactly what they're going to get, and it's just for them. And look, it's all about testing. If I rattle off 10 different random things to test and you try them all, and 4 of them work and the other ones don't, you're like, that guy Jay doesn't know what he's talking about. And that very well may be true. But it's just about getting things in your quiver that you can then use again and again and again. Everything's not going to work for everybody. But I guess really the whole idea is to look at things just a little bit differently. Don't follow everybody else's playbook. A lot of times people start subject lines, they'll say, you learn the latest, whatever, or discover this, or find out that. And it's like, what are we doing? It's garbage. It's wallpaper when you really have to speak to somebody like a human being about what's going to get them excited. Things like curiosity, question subject lines absolutely do incredible, right? What's the new trick to lower your umbrella policy, whatever, question mark. I got to find that out. I mean, why does Jeopardy exist? I can't answer any of the questions. We just like questions and we like answers. Turning your subject line into a question for that matter crushes it. So these little things, they sound like they shouldn't matter, but when people say email doesn't work for them, it's because they don't do the little things. And the reality of it is the way email works, it's a chain, right? If somebody doesn't open up your email, then they're not going to see what you have to say. They're not going to click. You need to make sure they get the email, they receive it, then they open it, then your headline grabs them. They want to keep reading. Then they click on that. Then they go to your landing page. Every chain needs to stay connected because if you lose them in the subject line, they're dead to you.
Okay, so we've got a great subject line.
Yeah.
We get them to open the email. What's the body of the email look like? What are we putting in there? How much is too much? How much is not enough?
Yeah.
Are
That's a
we
great
putting,
question.
and the thing is, you hear all kinds of tricks, right? Like
Yeah.
you hear, oh, put an animated GIF of yourself waving so that their eyes caught to it and they'll eventually click to go to the link. And I mean, I think BombBomb's the one that started that when
Yeah.
it came out is putting something animated in there. But I mean, I've also heard that if you get too much rich text and images in an email, that's going to flag it for things. And that may be one of those myths that you're talking about. It may not be. So I'm interested from an actual structure.
Yeah.
What have you found to be the most successful?
All right, so that's a great question. A few things I would think about is first, who are you marketing to, right? Meaning, are these prospects or are these people in your database and they're existing people that care about you? Because it's not the same population of people. People that are prospects, they don't care about you. They barely opened up the email. So you have to be much more concise in what you're saying, 75 words or less. Now, people that are in your database, they care about you. Maybe you've done business with them before. You're looking at 150 words or less because they care about you a little bit. But the other big thing is not being visually boring. You never want to have more than 4 lines of text in any text block. It doesn't matter if it says, Jay, you just won $1 billion. Nobody's reading it because it feels like it's going to be work. So 3 lines of text, bulleted, white space, really making it easy. But then the biggest things also are your call to action button, right? You have this rectangular button in your message where you're saying, maybe you want somebody to attend like a webinar or something. We all write the stupidest thing. We write, register. Okay. That's what's in it for
click
you.
Here.
Right.
Yeah, click here. Like they don't
Click
know to
here.
click there.
Right. Click here, register, download. And that's what's in it for you, the sender. What you want to frame it. If you write your call to action buttons in first person, we actually see click-through rates rise by over 28%. So what do I mean? So let's say you are promoting like a webinar, okay? Instead of saying, what sounds better to you? Register or I want in, right? Register or save my spot. Let the person, it's in their subconscious, feel like they're part of what's about to happen. Or instead of, buy now, it's save my 25% now. The person needs to feel like they're one step closer. So when you write things in first person, your click-through rates radically change. And then the last one is adding a PS. You always want to have a PS that has your offer link as well, because nobody actually reads your emails. They read the headline, maybe the first line, and they go right to the PS. And that will radically change the number of people that are clicking through on your emails.
So what's an example of a good PS? Let's use the webinar thing.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the times, with my industry specifically, we're either trying to get people to register for a webinar,
Yeah.
or we're trying to get them to go to our website, to go to a blog post where there's some sort of a call to action in the blog post, or we're trying to get them to just download an ebook or some sort of an offer that we're giving them directly from the email. So using the webinar is probably the best example of those three. What's a good PS look like?
Well, a few things. First of all, I'm done calling things a webinar. Webinar is actually a stained word. We've tested in every which way possible, and calling things a webinar will actually hurt you now. So, like, what does that mean? What can you call it instead of a webinar? Insider sessions are doing real. I mean, it's all the same thing. Insider sessions are doing great. Live event is doing great. 30-minute panels doing great. You have to think about every variable, and the actual word webinar has become a stained word because it just equals boring. Okay,
Hmm.
that's unfortunately right out of the gate the biggest problem. But then the other thing about webinars is you want people to have FOMO, that they might miss out on it. So for example, in that PS, I would say things like, only 11 spots left, go grab one. You have to do something that sounds very specific that the person might miss out on getting it, or else they're not going to care. It's very hard to get them to care. And even blog posts, I think one of the biggest trends that it's hard to wrap our minds around is that, what do we all do? We have blogs, we have a resource tab on our site, and blah, 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 blah. And then we let content live there forever because we're playing an SEO game. We're like, oh, we put that content up, we're going to get more traffic because of SEO, whatever. But what you want to think about doing is taking content away, having content expire. So let's say it is a blog post, right? And then you could say, this blog post is only going to be up for 2 more days. And then take it down for 2 weeks and then put it back up to play the SEO game. But creating FOMO for any of your content is going to be how you get people a little bit more interested, because right now all we're doing is just hoping that they click through.
Interesting. Dude, I got to tell you, man, we've been going for maybe 20 minutes. This might be the first podcast people aren't going to be able to listen to on 2X. I think usually I'm the one that's hyped up and running a million miles an hour, but I'm going to go ahead and cede my championship for fast talking to you today, brother. You've
I'm
got it
so
nailed.
sorry. I'm
No,
so
no,
sorry.
no. No, screw that, man. They need to listen to the whole thing.
There you go.
That's the way it should be anyhow. But, um, you know, so people monitor open rates, they monitor click rates. I know you
Yeah.
said, attribution is kind of garbage and a waste of time. How do you feel about those things from measurement?
First of all, I love it. And it's funny you say that people look at open rates, because there's this whole dialogue in my world where people say open rates are garbage. So first of all, what is an open rate? You send out, 100,000 emails. You go into your tracking report, it says 22% open rate, and that means 22,000 people opened it up. And the reason there's a lot of talk of that open rates are garbage is that now there's a lot of bots out there. The way that Apple has their system set up, it's automatically inflating your open rate tracking. So here's the sad truth. When you go into your tracking report and it says 22% open rate, it does not actually mean you got 22,000 opens, unfortunately, because it's not accurate, because there's too much crap going on out there. But the reason I love open rates, the reason they're so important, even though they're inaccurate, is they're not an absolute metric anymore. They're not correct, but directionally they are. What I mean by that is, so let's say you do a test, an A/B test. 50% of your database, you send a subject line with an emoji. The other 50% you don't. Okay. And the one with an emoji gets a 40% open rate. The one without it gets a 25% open rate. Directionally, the one with the emoji did better. And that's the value of that open rate. It doesn't mean it's exactly right, but directionally, it's really, really important. And click-through rates also, there's an inflation of click-through rates as well. There's so much bot activity out there. But what you want to do in terms of any metrics in any marketing, but especially email, you never want to look up for industry averages. That's the worst thing you could do, because who cares what an industry average is? There's different brands, different offers, different timing. Who cares? You always want to think about your marketing like you're a swimmer or like you're a weightlifter, where you want to benchmark yourself. When I send out my email newsletter, what are my opening click-through rates? When I send out an offer email, what are my opening click-through rates? When I send out a sales email, what are my opening click-through rates? And then, just like a swimmer, you want to beat yourself. Every single time you hit send, how am I going to beat myself? Forget about anything else in the world. benchmark yourself in the different silos. Don't treat email as one big bucket, and always try to beat yourself.
You know, it's interesting you said that about Apple because that's something, I mean, I don't study it nearly as much as you do, but we're HubSpot users here at the
Yeah.
agency. And so it's always interesting to me when we do send out emails, whether it's even just an individual email. I know dang well that that person is in a meeting or something else and they didn't open it, but it's almost like I get the HubSpot notification right away. Boom, from what used to be called Sidekick that, you
Yeah.
know, oh, so and so opened your email with subject line, whatever it is. And then you send out a email marketing campaign and you're getting flurries of them. And you know, there's just no way possible. So I always wondered if it was something with the way the iPhone was set up that when somebody gets an email that's delivered, that it's automatically like
It is.
registering is opened.
It is. So I'll tell you a quick hack to figure something out. But with Apple specifically, so first off, 47% of all email is read on people using their mail app on an Apple device. Okay, 47%, that's a lot of email. And Apple is automatically sending back an automatic open. That's how they do it because they don't want you to be able to track opens. But if you ever want to figure out how inflated your stuff is, or at least get a version of how many fake bot clicks you have or fake opens that you may have, what you can do, send an email out at 2 in the morning. Okay. And you're like, why would I ever do that? And then you can, in your tracking report, isolate out all the activity that you got in the first 30 minutes after you sent it out 2 in the morning. You are not that popular. Okay. Nobody cares about you at 2 in the morning. If you isolate out the traffic that you got in those first 30 minutes, say, oh, I had a 7% open rate and I had a 1% click-through rate, and these are all the people that opened and clicked. They didn't. Those are bots. Those are fake whatevers. And then at least you have a baseline of how inflated your metrics are to some extent.
Interesting. Android doesn't have the same situation. Is it Apple? It's
No.
Apple specific.
Yeah, no. The only thing going on with, with let's say Gmail and Android, whatever, and we could go down this whole rabbit hole is all this promotions tab stuff, which
Yeah.
people think is a problem, but it's actually not a problem at all. And that's a whole other myth that people think that going to the promotions tab is bad. It's actually good. And that's a whole other world.
So expand on that. Why
Okay.
do you say that?
So people, okay, so you send out your emails like, oh no, my emails went in the promotions tab in Gmail, and now Apple has this promotions tab in their latest update, and that's really a bad thing. A few things. Number one, the promotions tab is part of the inbox. It's not the junk folder. It's just a way that some people use to set up their inbox. Now, not a lot of people actually use the buckets to begin with. So in Gmail, less than 30% of Gmail users actually have that turned on, and it's way smaller on Apple. So you're talking about a fraction of people. But the other thing, and the reason that when we see in all the data, going in the promotions tab does not hurt performance for business to business or consumer emails. And the reason being is this. So when you go to the mall, okay, you're looking to buy something. You're in buying mode. You're in the mall. Now, when stuff goes in your promotions tab, what people don't realize is of the people that have it activated, that less than 30%, 50% of those people check it daily. Okay. So these people aren't lost. It's like they're going to the mall. They're clicking on the promotions tab in their inbox and they are looking for offers and information and promotional stuff. That's the whole reason they're going in there. Right. So they're in the right mindset to actually engage with whatever you're sending. And so we don't see performance go down at all. And when people try to get out of the promotions tab, it's a waste of energy, time. It doesn't help. And so I'm a big fan of letting everyone know, just focus on other stuff. The promotions tab is not your problem.
So riding the promotions wave a little bit, it's interesting to me how much email I get from one brand versus another, right? And
Yeah.
I'm going to call out a name. Love their stuff, but don't really love how many emails I get from them. And that's Tommy Bahama. You know, if you go to the store and you sign up for their Flipside promotion or whatever one they're running, and you give them your email to do that, I would be willing to bet you, Jay, I get 5 emails a day from Tommy Bahama, like every single day. So I'm talking out of one side of my mouth saying that, but out of the other side of my mouth, I can tell you that at some point, knowing that I get those, and when in Outlook specifically, because I've got my preview pane on the right. So when I click on something, I see their graphic, and usually it's the latest shirt or the one that's going to catch my eye or whatever else. I end up buying it, man. Like I'm reinforcing the behavior. And so I'm interested as to why some brands, them being one, sends out this what I think is a ridiculous volume of emails on a daily basis to each person. And maybe it's not each person. Maybe they've got it set up in some sophisticated way that they know if we send 5 emails to this address, we're going to sell a shirt, and it would work on a daily basis, maybe, versus other brands that are maybe sending you something once a day or maybe once a week or a couple of times a month. Like, what's the right cadence?
So, believe it or not, first of all, 5 times a day is ridiculous. I don't care what brand you are. Nobody should be sending 5 times a day. Let's start with that baseline.
Well, at
Okay.
least we agree there because
Yeah.
it's absolutely absurd. And I don't know how they get away with it, but I also haven't unsubscribed. So, I
Right.
mean,
There's that. So that's the extreme. Okay. That being said, I will tell you that I don't believe people are sending out enough email. I know that sounds ridiculous. That whatever your company is, you're not sending out enough email. And here's why I say that. The way you stay in the inbox now in this world, not 10 years ago, is based on engagement. How often are people opening and clicking and engaging with whatever you're sending? From a technical perspective, the receiving email infrastructures are looking to see how often you're engaging or whatever. The weird part is if you don't send out enough email to your database, okay, now it has to be relevant. You can't send out garbage. It has to be stuff people want to engage with. Let's assume you're sending out good stuff. But if you don't send out enough email, you can't generate enough engagement to actually stay in the person's inbox from a technical perspective. So the weird part is if you don't send out enough, you're going to go to the junk folder. So you need to be sending out at least about 5 times a month, at least. Now, hopefully everyone's doing more than that. And it's all about being relevant. Okay. You have to send out relevant stuff. Relevancy and frequency are married together. But if you're sending out, once a month, twice a month, that is actually the thing that is hurting your ability to get performance.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, unless I've got an event like I'm going to use the stained word webinar, but it's funny because I don't really even use that. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm a genius and it was intentional. Typically my stuff are considered boot camps or
Yeah,
panels or something,
that's good.
something like
Those are
that.
good.
And
Yeah.
I will admit completely serendipitous that that's how it is. But we also tend to get, to your point, good registrations and everything else.
Yeah.
So if I've got something like that, you're going to get an initial email. And if it's a paid situation, we're always going to give some level of early bird pricing with a limited number of people or a limited number of days that are going to get that. And then at some point, it goes up. And I'm a big believer in when you say you're going to do that, you do it. You don't come,
Right.
because I see a lot of people in marketing that'll say early bird offer only good for 3 days, and 3 days come and go, and on day
Right.
number 4 early bird offer extended for another, and they just extend it perpetually, and I don't
Right.
even know that it ever goes up to the regular price. But I've always been good about sticking to my guns and having it where if we have a promotion, we have the promotion. If you miss it, you miss it. If you email me after the fact and say, hey, I really wanted to sign up, but I didn't, I apologize. Next time, maybe understand we're serious about when we say we're going to go up, because it's not fair to everybody else at this point
Yes.
that I've charged full price to. So something like that, I'm going to announce it, and then I'm going to announce that early bird pricing is gone, and maybe say we only have so many seats left or whatever else. And then as the event gets closer, we may pick up the pace a little bit more and send something out every other day or every day, just kind of as a countdown, versus if I'm sending information out to, let's just say, we've done a campaign at the agency about personal umbrella, okay, because I think it's really important for as litigious as society is right now. And I can send that to everybody in my HubSpot, whether it's a personal lines client or a commercial lines client, because it's relevant to all of them. Something like that, we might do a drip campaign over a course of 12 weeks where each week highlights something different that sends them to a blog post, but I'm only sending stuff to my insurance clients on a once a week basis. And what I'm hearing is I'm probably okay for staying out of the junk filter, but probably need to pick up the cadence and maybe send stuff
Yes.
more frequently so that I'm staying top of mind.
Yeah, 100%. And what you shouldn't be turned off by are unsubscribes. what the worst thing that people do is they're like, oh, I listened to this crazy guy Jay talk really fast on the show. He said to send out more, and we did. And then, we got more unsubscribes, or even worse, we got a nasty gram in that somebody said, I hate you guys. This might even be illegal. You're spamming me, whatever. And then what does
Good. You know what,
everybody
though? You're
do?
purifying your pipeline at that point. You're getting the garbage out that's
100%.
not going to buy from you anyhow, right?
100% right. And never let the loudest voice in the room dictate your marketing efforts. Just because somebody is a keyboard commando, they're having a bad day, they were never a good prospect for you. And that's why they wrote that nasty gram. And here's the thing, unsubscribes do not hurt your deliverability. They do not cause you to go to the junk folder or spam folder. Ironically, they actually help you stay in the inbox because it's engagement. The only thing that hurts are spam complaints, which is a totally different thing, a totally different technical thing. So don't be turned off by unsubscribes. I would argue that if you're doing something, you're getting more unsubscribes, that you're actually doing something that people are actually paying attention to more. They're actually seeing it for the first time. That now maybe they're not a fit for whatever you're sending out. That's okay. So when you send out more things happen. Period. End of story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. And honestly, I never really thought about it that way. Unsubscribes don't necessarily bother me, but the fact is that if people are unsubscribing, you're refining that email list to the people who are actually paying attention. And you know what? It's like Google reviews too. If you go, if you're a raving fan, like a car, like I take my car in to get the freaking oil changed or whatever, they're going to hound me and, until I actually go in and give them a review for how awesome of a job they did of a routine maintenance thing on my car. Like it's crazy. And I know why they're doing it, with Google and everything else, but the only people who really respond to those things are ones who are raving fans that had an awesome experience that are willing to sit down and take the time to write a review, or the people that got pissed off for one reason or another, and it might be something completely illegitimate. I've got negative reviews on my insurance agency page because I had an insurance carrier on my podcast that some rando had a negative experience with, and they came to my Google page, gave me a negative review because I interviewed the CEO of this company and I had nothing to do with it. And so I say that because that leaves the people in the middle, and they don't unsubscribe necessarily, but they're also not going to go in and leave you a great review as a raving fan because you maybe haven't gotten to that point with them yet. You're still building trust and authority with them. And that's really where we should be focusing our time if we want to push them one way or the other in our funnel.
It's so funny you bring up reviews, not to go off on a tangent for a second, but people misunderstand reviews a lot too. There was a study by Northwestern where they reviewed, I was like a couple 100,000 reviews, and then impact on companies. What they found was businesses that had a 5-star reviews, that was all they had, versus business that had anything from 4.2 to 4.8 star reviews. Okay, Google reviews, whatever. The people that had 4.2 to 4.8 did exponentially better. They got exponentially more business because people felt it was more real. No one believes just 5-star reviews. The number one thing you have to do with reviews, and again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, is respond to them, is write something back quickly. That's more important than anything. Getting a bad review is not the problem. It's getting a bad review that you don't react to properly online. So this myth that you're not going to upset some people, in order to have raving fans, you need to upset a few people, and you're not going to be for everybody. If you try to be for everybody, you're going to be for nobody.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example, man. Mayer's Jewelers in International Plaza here in Tampa. I had gone in and I ordered a watch strap for one of my watches that I had purchased elsewhere. It was literally the first time I had ever gone in. And coincidentally, I ended up buying my wife a Cartier watch while we were in there. So they got me in on the watch strap, but it was a very expensive watch strap in the end. And, I walked the lady through exactly what I was looking for, what I wanted. She explained that it was a special order and that I wouldn't be able to return it when it came in and all of this other stuff. And I was perfectly fine with that. And I went in to go pick up the watch strap when it came in, and guess what? The lady ordered the wrong color. It wasn't the color that I wanted. It was a different shade, and they wouldn't let me return it. They wouldn't let me refund it. They wouldn't take ownership of the fact that they made the mistake. It had nothing to do with me because I showed her my old one. She just simply ordered the wrong one when she actually keyed it into the computer. And I went in and absolutely annihilated them on Google as a result of it. And I don't do it often, but it proves the point that if you really make somebody mad, they're going to go in and do that. And so for a long time, I never stepped foot in the store. I didn't want anything to do with them. In fact, it was so bad, I bought a case of or like 12 copies of the book, The Nordstrom Way on Customer Service and Retail, and had it drop shipped to the store and gave them a note and said, you might want to have all your salespeople read this.
Wow.
But I ended up, realizing that the lady that was there that made the mistake was gone. The manager was fired at some point over the last couple years and overturned it. And I also realized that they were the only authorized dealer for Rolex that we had in town. So I, was in the market to buy a Rolex last year. And so I told my wife, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to go in, I'm going to see what goes on and have an open mind, see if I can, have a good experience and find somebody in there that I can relate to. And sure enough, I met this, younger sales guy that was aggressive, and he, was able to deliver on what I wanted and did so very, very quickly in a time where it's really hard to even get a Rolex from an AD. Most people are having to buy them off of the gray market. And absolutely perfect experience. Guess what I did? I went back in, I took the old review down where I annihilated them, and I put up a positive review for them because I had a chance to have a good experience with them. I think there's a lot of that too, man. And depending on how you respond to a review and how you engage with that person determines whether or not maybe they will give you a chance to fix it. A lot of people have a short fuse, man. Like I grew up we didn't talk about this before we started recording. I was in retail for 10 years. I ran grocery stores and super targets. So customer service is king, man. You had to have great service in the grocery industry because you have a net profit margin of $1 on the national average. So I'm begging people to put $100 in groceries in their shopping cart so I can make a buck. And the whole thing was I couldn't let anybody leave the store unhappy. I had to make sure whatever I did, I was able to adapt no matter how much it cost me on the front end. It would cost me a lot more on the back end if they left and talked bad about me. And this is even long before, online reviews and everything else. And so I think there's some magic in the fact that if you respond the right way, or you get that review because the person prematurely left it, they were upset without ever giving somebody a chance to try and fix the problem, and you actually fix it. A negative review that they leave in that turns positive is a really powerful thing for the public to see, because I don't think any of us expect everything to be perfect every single time, right? I think it's okay if people make mistakes. In my industry, it's a little bit tougher because you make a mistake, it costs somebody a lot of money, and that's not good. But in normal daily transactions or things, it's okay as long as that person owns the mistake and then is able to go back and make it a better experience. The story I always tell is when I was running my grocery stores, I had a lady come in. She had a kid's birthday party that was at a city park, about a half mile down from where my store was. And we spelled the name wrong. The person had horrible handwriting that took the note that gave it to the cake decorator. A cake decorator thought they knew what it said, but it didn't. A letter was wrong. This lady came in and she was hot to trot, heartbroken and angry both that we had screwed up the birthday cake for her kid. So she came in and is just reading me the riot act up one side and down the other. And I let her go until she came up for air. And I said, listen, ma'am, I'll be honest with you. I understand this looks like it's a problem for you, but you've not even given me an opportunity to fix it for you yet. I mean, I feel like we can take care of this. So talk to me for a second. When's the birthday party? Where is it? She goes, well, it's not even an hour away now. And there's no way it took me a week, to get blah, blah, blah. Right. And I said, all right, listen, you've got a lot more important things to worry about than this cake. If I tell you that the cake's going to be taken care of, it'll be taken care of. Please go set up for the birthday party. Give me the address. We'll make sure we get the cake there. So what we do, we just got another cake out. We put the things on there the right way. I go get a bunch of balloons from the floral department. I get a few half gallons of ice cream. I show up with way more than what she expected. It didn't cost me more than about $50, probably $100 for everything I did. And I get there about 15 minutes before the party. There's all kinds of people that are already there. And I show up with all of this stuff. And they're like, who in the world is this guy? How many customers do you think I gained for my business because of how I reversed what was 100%. A negative situation into a positive? The difference is now it's all done online, and there's an art to that. You have to be willing to accept accountability when you did mess something up, but then you have to be able to persuade that person to allow you to give them, allow you to have another chance to fix whatever the problem is wrong. And with all the bulletproof keyboard warriors that are out there, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I agree with you 100% that how you respond to the review is more important than the review itself in most cases.
Absolutely. Yep. Always 100 and respond fast. It can't be like one of these that sits up there for a week, because that will hurt you for sure.
So listen, we've been going long enough. We probably need to wrap up because I'm going one right after the other today. But before we do, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your agency and what you do, because you've got a lot of people that may or may not be constituency for you that listen to this, but this is your chance for the plug, man. I mean, I like the way you think, and I have a feeling a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are going to like the way you think too. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. I'll do my shameless plug. So my agency is called Outcome Media. That's the URL, outcomemedia.com. It's only a one-page website, even though we're about a 100-person company, because all we have there is you can book a call with us, and we just love learning what brands are trying to do, what companies are trying to do, and how we can help. All I do is demand gen. All I do is net new. I'm not interested in consulting or any of that stuff. I just want to fill up your pipeline, fill up your sales, fill up your lead flow. So if that's of interest, go to outcomemedia.com. I also have a crazy podcast called Do This, Not That. We put out 5 episodes a week, which is rough, but it's always quick tips, tactical stuff about marketing. And then check out subjectline.com. It's free. It's kind of fun. And then my platform of choice is LinkedIn. If you want to connect, just drop me a connection request, and I share way too much garbage there. And I appreciate you having me on.
absolutely, man. No, this has been a great one, and I have a feeling it's going to be very, very well received. A lot of I would say against the grain thought process from what you typically hear from people, which is refreshing. That's how we've been successful in the commercial insurance and risk management space, is because we look at things through a lens other people don't look at it through. And it's been, people look at you like you're a genius or like you got an eyeball in the middle of your forehead when you think that way. But financially speaking, and based on our numbers, it seems like more of them think that we can do a good job. So I really appreciate you reaching out to be on the podcast. Number one, I would tell you, everybody listening to this, if you like this, go get a dose of this guy every single day. You might be able to skip one of the cups of coffee you drink, because he'll get you revved up relatively quickly. As an aside, my oldest son is a terrible driver. God love him. He totaled 3 cars in 18 months, and
Oh my God.
he hasn't been driving. Two of them were not his fault. One of them was, but I mean, you have to be a really good defensive driver too. But he hasn't driven in going on 3 years now. So
Wow.
he has been riding to work with me every day. And he's also new to the insurance industry. So one of the social things that I created was just a really quick one to 1.5 minute real short, whatever you want to call it, called Carpool Closer, that he would ask me a question that a producer would need to know, and I would answer it, and he would hold the camera and record me answering his questions on the way to work every day, and the thing took off. It did really, really well. And so I got the idea, you know what, we could do something even more with this. Let's turn this into a book. So we took all of the videos and transcribed them. I ran them through ChatGPT to organize my thoughts. Okay, so it's still my wording, but I wanted it to be in a more logical format. And we created a daily sales reader that's going to be published and ready by October 1st. It's got 365 daily blurbs that you can go in and read just a couple of quick paragraphs. It's got an impactful quote from somebody, in the business world, or a coach or an athlete or whatever. And then it gives you 5 things to reflect on from that. But the only reason I'm telling you this story is because I'm not going to do that as an audio book. We're actually going to do the same thing you're doing, and we're going to release it as 365 episodes of a podcast that'll be released Monday through Friday until we've exhausted 365 days. So, you said it's brutal. I expect it to be brutal. Thank you for confirming that, but I'm still going to do it. So,
Well, you already have the content, so you're going to be good. And you're built for this. You're a machine. So I'm excited to listen to that. And that sounds like an awesome format.
Good deal, man. Well, we're going to go get LinkedIn revved up as soon as
Yes.
I stop recording here because I got a really good screenshot of you, and I'm going to make sure we drive plenty of traffic to this. So, again, thanks for coming on today, and I look forward to following you online and keeping up with what you're doing.
Yeah, man. Thanks again. This has been awesome.
All right, man.